Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Solitos tuo, sulcarum, ungularum, delectatque, contremescit me. Intra, intra, intra.
Baked so well.
It was very well baked. Very well baked.
Is that my speech impediment? Is that your impression of me?
He said very and then kept going with it.
Nope, that's the intro.
Welcome back, Elmers. It's 13th Elm. It's Thanksgiving. So we got the boys together doing a special episode today. We're colonizing Mars, and we're commemorating the 1979 or 1980 or 1985. Pretty complicated release history for this one. You know what it is. It's Ruggero Deodato's Cannibal Holocaust. Bill? Rob?
Hey.
Hello. Happy Thanksgiving. Perfect movie for the holiday.
Turkey Day.
Yeah, and we are here. Well, we're not technically
Here,
on
we're
Mars. We're in the space
we're there.
station.
Look
We're
up.
Where?
Look up, motherfucker.
Yeah, that twinkle in the sky, that's probably... Honestly, it's
not
probably
God.
Rob's cum, honestly.
That's not God. It's Rob's cum.
You've been beaten off to the celestial bodies since we got here. And
They are sexy.
It's sexy.
it's
up
nice
here.
of you to take a break, honestly, to talk about this movie.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, if you guys... you're my friends, and you're important to me, and so I decided to take a break for a bit and do this pod.
Thank you. We can't thank you enough.
Well, hold on.
Try.
Hold on. That robot's going by. Hold on.
Dude, you remember Chopping Mall?
It looks like that. It looks like that. It looks like Wall-E.
Oh, if Wall-E got fucked by...
Okay, it's gone.
Oh.
If Wall-E got fucked by one of those robots in Chopping Mall?
Oh my god, that'd be hot.
Would you fuck Wally?
Yeah.
He's famous, so yeah. By my
Would you
rule that I made myself.
Fuck the robot from Short Circuit?
Yes. Most
Oh,
robots.
yeah.
What's his name?
Johnny Five?
Johnny Five.
I don't know that robot, but most
Oh
robots
my god,
get
do
an
you like
automatic
laughing and having a good time?
Yes.
Then you'd fuck Johnny Five.
He's
Yep.
like really. He's like a good.
Is he
guy.
sexy?
Yeah.
You know what robots don't need to do?
Fuck.
Eat.
Oh.
Maybe
and-
they'd like to though.
So
Fuck
I
or
don't think that they
eat.
celebrate Thanksgiving, which is unfortunate. Martians don't celebrate Thanksgiving,
Damn.
but they're about to.
I could cover those eyes.
You could cover them eyes. But yeah, I mean Martians don't, but they could, and we are here now.
Yeah. Thanks for pulling that all together, Bill. I don't know if
The Mars expedition?
yeah, Rob and I said that.
Yeah, we just fucking took this shit over.
Well, I know that your dad was hanging out with his buddy Tony, Anthony.
Yeah.
Aunt Tony.
Yeah.
Well, his colleague. We won't mention any names.
Don't give out any names, but
But,
he
Might have been
does
retiring this
he
week.
does he does have to do with like a certain pandemic
Yeah.
that ended up not being
Real.
and now we're on Mars.
Yeah.
Repopulating.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Right.
there were
It's funny that they sent 3 men here to repopulate, but we'll give it a college try.
So the top scientist of the world listened to our podcast somehow.
What about
They
the bottom
they
scientist?
intercepted-
I'm more
they-
interested in him.
They're dead.
For me.
They died of COVID.
Of course they would. That's fucked up.
The top scientist tried to tune in, accidentally picked up our broadcast,
Our
and we're
bar-
like,
we have a bar cat? Like, is that like a barn cat?
No, it's a bar cast.
it's a bar cast.
podcast at the
People
bar.
Chromecast us up at bars. That's how we
Yeah.
got popular.
And then I tricked him, and he thought, "Oh, we just send all 3 of y'all."
He said he was like, they
Oh.
talk about cum enough that one of them has to be able to get pregnant. We'll just send the 3 and it'll be fine.
And that's how we got famous?
So we're on Mars.
That's how we got famous. This is like in the future, kind of like.
We're already
How is it in the
famous. We're
future?
famous before we went to Mars.
Right, that's what I'm saying
From
because
the
it's already
broadcast,
happened.
People Chromecasting our
Right from the
podcast
yeah,
in bars.
because and you're delivering
Broadcast.
this message from the future.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait,
But I'm
are you
talking
the
about
Rob? That,
past.
are you the Bill
We
that
got
we
famous in the
brought here, or
past.
are you the Bill that was already here?
That's not important. What is important is that we came here and it's ours now. There were people
the whole
living
planet?
here. There were people living on the planet, but we
Damn.
took care of it.
We're like big. We're like land rich.
We're land rich.
We're cash poor.
We're Terra Nouveau Rich.
Terra Nouveau rich. I like
We
that.
are cash poor.
cute.
We are cash poor, but we are on Mars and we colonize this motherfucker because it's
Yep.
Thanksgiving and that's what we do.
That's what you do.
We're all Americans, right? I mean, we're Martians now. That's what we
We're
do.
Martians.
We're
But we
Martians.
were,
American.
but now we're Martians. No taxation without representation. You know, it's like fuck America. Like, you know, it's like they don't remember our votes.
And we're trying really fucking hard to get someone pregnant. And we'll
Right.
keep you up.
Yeah.
Guess who?
I'll give you a hint. It's
We rolled a die, and I will say Rob brought the only die that we have, and it only lands on him. Have you seen
The
it?
die lands on me.
The die lands on Rob every time for his
just
turn
my
to be
face
impregnated.
on the
Have you seen the die? I don't know what
the only
size
thing
it has.
Rob has rolled is over. So let's talk about this fucking
It's
movie.
a D100
It's a 200
with
pregnancy
100 little
dice.
pictures of Rob,
Yeah. Good.
which has nothing to do with Cannibal Holocaust, which is one of the most controversial.
Keep the
Films?
momentum.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at how I can't talk. This is a 1980, 79, 85. Like you said, we don't know. There's lots of weird, fucked up history to this movie, but it's an Italian cannibal movie, and these movies were popular for
Years, like from like
the
78.
60s.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like late 60s.
Oh, there's like a
and
bunch of these.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, we watched
yeah.
one. Anthropophagus is.
Anthropophagus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Cannibal Pharaoh.
Italian cannibal films is like kind of its own genre, and Cannibal Holocaust is like it's kind of split between film scholars as either being there's like a general consensus that it ended Italian cannibal movies, and some people argue because it pushed the envelope too much and it went too far and it was too disturbing and they're like, we're done. And other people argue that he did it in such a way that it can't be replicated, and in a way like he did it in air quotes the best way, and it's just done, like it's a wrap, leave it at that.
Well, like we'll get into a ton of shit, but like the investigation and the media and everything, the accusations of it being a snuff film and all that shit, it's like it brought
Yes.
so much attention, not only to the film but to the genre as a whole, that it was like, I don't know, it really did kind of like kill the genre.
You want to run through the plot real quick? Just give a little overview.
Yeah, I mean, this one is fairly simple. It's going to be following Harold Monroe, who is an anthropologist. Dr. Monroe is from New York University, or maybe Professor Monroe, excuse me. And he's leading a rescue team into the Amazon rainforest to locate a crew of filmmakers who have gone missing. These filmmakers were in the Amazon, referred to by the locals as the Green Inferno, or Infierno Verde. Anyway, they went missing while filming a documentary on the local tribes, one of which they believe to be cannibals. So the first half of this movie plays kind of weird. It plays as a film that's kind of like presented as like a docudrama to set up how the found footage, which is the second half of the movie, is recovered. So the first half of the movie is a film played by actors, and there's even like actors portraying what will be other actors later in the film. And then when they get into the jungle and they locate this videotape, they bring it back to New York City, and they have to determine what they want to do with
The footage.
the footage, if they're going to release it, if it needs to be destroyed, if it has educational value or what. And the second half of the movie basically plays as these doctors and other academics are reviewing the found footage.
It's like I don't think it's a lot of people in academia. I think it's pretty much the professor and then like TV producers,
Like a media.
He's the man of science,
Yeah.
arguing against TV studio people that only see dollar
Profit,
signs.
yeah.
And that's one of the moral arguments of this movie. But I mean, as controversial and like people really dislike this movie for many reasons, but it's so hard to ignore the significance of it, even on almost any way you come at it.
Yeah, it's polarizing for people who have never seen it. It's polarizing for people who've watched it. It's got a lot of merit and credence for being innovative and ahead of its time. It's also
Awful.
It's also
In
you can
a
have a
lot of ways.
conversation about is like what's the means to an end, and like what's your art worth, and how much of it is just your bullshit pretension.
So I know I have seen this now probably 4 or 5 times. And I know this isn't your first viewing, but this is your first viewing, right, Rob?
Oh yeah.
What did you think?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah. First of all, did you guys watch it together?
Yes.
Yes.
In Mars? Was I in the ship? Were you in the
No,
ship?
we had
'Cause
just
I was
left
around.
Pyongyang. Like we were in the ship, but we hadn't left the stratosphere.
What was I doing?
Jerking off.
Which time? What time? What day? What time? What?
It was
were-
right
no,
when
we were
you were
kicking
trying
off.
to
You were
find
trying
the
to-
zero gravity because you were trying to see when it would
fuck.
float.
You guys missed that.
Yeah.
You guys missed that. It
Well,
floats.
not really. It came back around.
Oh, it came down there?
Yeah.
It's
no,
still
it's
floating.
around.
It's floating
Well, not
around.
anymore, but
Let me know if you see it.
Would you fucking eat
Is
it?
that
What do you
real?
do?
I want that
put it in a
back.
bag.
I want it
Oh,
back.
you put it back.
Let me
You
know
want
if
it
you see
back?
it, because I do want it back.
Push it back in.
I think I put it out of the spaceship.
But
Yeah, you just open the spaceship window.
you open the window.
Thanks a hedge.
All right, whatever. What'd you think?
I think it's a pretty well-made film. It's an interesting framing for it, and actually, Michael kind of told me that before we watched it, and I'm not mad, but I wish you hadn't. I wish I'd been totally blind going into it.
What did he tell
He
you?
like told me that it was like a kind of like a documentary, and like basically what he said, like half of the film is that, and the other half is like
Right.
the film itself. But I don't know, man. I'm not squeamish, but a lot of it comes down to like this is a movie and it's not real, and the real animal death and violence in it is graphic, and again, it's like you did that for your art.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess they did eat the turtle, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't plan to watch this film again.
This movie is kind of like, it's hard to explain what it's like for someone like me, because in a way you can tell the filmmaker is like, oh, this is what you want to see, here you fucking go, and like you're gonna like it, you sick fuck, you know what I mean? And like that's kind of how it's presented, and like the question is asked like, you know, who's the real cannibals? And it's because it's kind of like pointing the finger back at the viewer, as in like you're watching this, like you enjoy this, which is like there's a lot of different layers to this movie, but perhaps the biggest layer is that the director Deodato is a piece of shit, like he is. And we talk about how in a lot of horror classics and just horror in general, like directors kind of have to be, maybe not have to be, that's arguable, I guess, but
the
like,
older traditions of like Hollywood and cinema, directors utilized or exercised tactics that would not be
don't fly
considered ethical today,
but
it's common practice.
But they get the shot,
and I'm
works.
not talking about like sexual like stuff, which is a whole different conversation.
Different
I'm not, but I just mean like on set, like the directing and like abuse and like I don't know, people sometimes like applaud like Kubrick and on the Shining set and stuff, and it's almost kind of like built up in this lore when we talk about it. But that's the type of shit I'm talking about, where it's like psychologically abusing a talent to the point where they're breaking, and like the performances, right? And like that was just a much more commonplace in the 60s, 70s, 80s even.
Yeah, there's an interview where they talk about the sex scene, and the girl that plays Faye, Francesca, didn't want to do it, didn't know it was going to be in there, didn't know she had to be nude, and they talk about how Deodato brought her into the fucking jungle, away from everybody, and because of the canopy and then being isolated, you could hear him screaming at her, and you could hear her cry, and she came back to the set crying, and they were like, all right, let's go, and they fucking rolled it, and she did the scene, and that's the fucking scene in the movie. And like the guy talking about this is fucking the guy that plays Alan Yates, the guy that does the sex scene with her. Is like, he remembers waiting, hearing her coming back, and was like, I knew she had been broken down and she's coming back to set, and we're gonna do the shot. Like, no, like, she's broken down, she's ready to do it. And she did it, and when you know that scene and other scenes just are so difficult to watch,
visceral,
and the way Francesca talks about it, she like gets upset, and like this is a huge regret for her and many of the actors and cast, or crew. I mean, many of the crew wish that they were never in this film, because they were young and they were impressionable, and they wanted to
get a free trip to Colombia and be in a movie,
and they wanted to make it. And there's a great quote from the cinematographer where he says, movies are like taxis. When one pulls up and says, hey, I'm free, you hop in it. And that's true. And like that's kind of like how this film happened, and it is a lot, and like we'll talk more on this too, it is very similar to Blair Witch 20 years later. Young actors being scared, possibly thinking that they're in a snuff film instead of a real film. Like the girl in Blair Witch used to like sneak a knife and sleep with a knife because she was alone in the woods with two men that she did not know, and like got lost. And this was kind of like a way more extreme version of this, and there's a lot of similarities, which is why
they don't speak the language, they're in another country, they're thousands of miles away from home, it's the 70s,
and they're like 18, 19,
the
actors. Shit is brutal, but it's really fucking good, and it's disturbing, and parts of it are really beautiful. The soundtrack is
unreal.
Honestly, maybe like one of the best soundtracks. The main theme is just fantastic, just brilliant. Can you argue with the soundtrack?
No, the soundtrack's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that soundtrack being the best part of the movie. Some of the practical effects are pretty good. It's an ambitious film to make on every level. I don't know how that sounds to somebody who might not agree with this movie ethically and doesn't appreciate hearing about its production. There's a certain place where the adoration and adulation of the film stops, and you have to like acknowledge the means in which it was all done by. But that might be a different podcast. For me, Cannibal Holocaust was one of those movies that was always on every list of like, oh, you
Most
want your
fucked
video
up,
not
most
nasties,
disturbing.
you want your most fucked up, you want your nasties, you want something that you shouldn't be watching. This is it. And it's been it since 79 when it got made and they couldn't release it, and then they went to court for 5 years before it finally got released. Like, this has been
Overseas for
that
a couple
movie
years.
for 50 fucking years almost. And that's really hard to do. And if you listen to this podcast, or, you know, you've heard any of our opinions, where we talked about like Human Centipede or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Rob and I talked about this, I think he's even mentioned it on air, is like, there's some of these titles that have these names that you almost, the best part about them is the name. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Human Centipede. It's almost like it stops there.
Yeah.
And you're not delivered with this crazy gross out, like whatever you thought it was going to be type of shit. So I think this is a movie that delivers on every level. You get your things that you're promised, from gross out to gore to depravity, exploitation. It feels wrong a lot of times. And it doesn't shy away. It leans into it hard, and it's still effective all this time later. And a lot of it probably is the unsimulated animal violence. Like, it's real death. I know
Real
it's really
animal
fucked up
death.
to like even talk about. We're not the first people to talk about this movie. If you're listening to this podcast, you know what it is. But yeah, and a lot of it, like you said, is that mirror being turned on us, right? Because it's who's exploiting who and who's the real cannibal, and like at what point do we come here and feel like we're doing the right thing, and in order to perpetuate that lie, we're going to demonstrate how horrible these people are by forcing them to behave a certain way by utilizing tactics that are beyond their comprehension. I.e., we're going to, you know, starve them or create conflicts or burn their village down or shit like that. And it's just really difficult to watch. Even if there was no blood or gore or animal violence in it, it's a big question, right?
And there is all that.
And
this
more.
movie's crazy because it's like really exploitative, but it's like about how exploitation is bad at the same time.
Right. It's a movie that actually has so much to say, and that's what's interesting about it. And I know when we talk about a lot of these horror movies, even like some of these classics that I mentioned, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like, oh, there's like more to say. There's like subtext. Like, this isn't even really subtext. This is a lot of like, how do you feel about this? And like, if you're distracted by the gore and everything, which it's easy to be distracted by the gore, I'm not being uncompassionate about that. But if you're paying attention to what the film has to say, it's very clear from the way it's written and the way the characters are developed. It's a big message. Deodato's actually made quite a great film here.
He really has. And it's hard to say that when people are just going to Google this and read a little description and be like, oh, these guys are just, you know, fucking sickos. But no, I agree. This movie is, unfortunately, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. And like the way that he got there was definitely not the best way, but it's good and it's terrifying, and the gore is effective, and the messages are not hidden behind anything. They're very clear. The professor is very obviously this protagonist who traveled back to the Amazon to recover this footage. He doesn't know the people personally that went there. Alan Yates is the character who is in the movie. He's like a known photographer. He's kind of like, I don't know if we had to compare him. He's like a really edgy, like Vice reporter. Like, he gets into the grit of it, like records people being
He's like
killed,
a Hunter Thompson.
like war.
Hunter Thompson. He's like a gonzo reporter.
Yeah. And we get this professor who is a good person that goes to the Amazon and is an anthropologist and wants to truly understand these people and find out what happened, like, and get the film back, but he has no idea what the previous people have done until they got the film
Until they view the
recovered and
footage.
seen, because the first half is mostly him, and if you're like a naive first person viewer, there might be a time where it cuts back from the professor to like New York City, where you're like breathing a sigh of relief, and you're like, okay, I got some crazy gore, like a brutal rape and an animal death.
made it
like
through
I
some
read
shit,
that
yeah.
this is we're in New York, there's TV executives like, whew, like they started out hot, like the beginning was crazy and now it's just gonna be whatever. Like, no, that's like the soft fucking, the found footage, like what he recovers from Alan Yates and his crew, Faye, Mike, and Luca.
Yeah.
And when they put that film together and try to decide if they're gonna make a movie or show or whatever out of it and watch it, is when you see the real
What happened?
horrors of what these people did and how they treated them. So they pretty much, I mean, they go through the same steps, right? Which is kind of crazy to say, but you arrive at this place and you're introduced to what is called the Yakuma tribe, and you follow them, and they bring you deeper in the jungle, and you need their trust. And then there's the Shamatori and
Tree people and
the tree people
yeah.
are the Yanomano,
Yeah.
which is like the cannibals, which is a lot of what the film is focused around. But we see how the professor goes through that process of, it's kind of like, I mean, this is such a silly way of talking about such an extreme movie, but it's kind of like going up bosses in a video game. It's like, all right, level 1, like you have to get the Yakuma to trust you, and he does that in such a very innocent, and this is I mean, it's a weird scene when you really think and like talk about it, but in the movie and with what surrounds it, it's a really beautiful scene. Actually, when he decides to gain their trust by stripping down naked and going into the water and bathing himself and showing his true self and showing that he's comfortable, and then a lot of tribes people run and join him in the water, and the title song plays
The women
again,
and
and it's like a really beautiful moment of this anthropologist, you know, in the Amazon, like gaining the trust of these people. And then we see later on how the crew of the Ford did the same thing, and
Right.
it was a complete 180. They didn't treat these people even as humans. They just treated them like fucking animals, like dogs. I mean, the first time they see one, they see a member of the tribe, they shoot them to wound them, and it's like, oh, this one's wounded, we can follow them and
Yeah.
we'll get back to the tribe. Like, that's how they want to get to the Yakuma tribe, or like start their relationship.
like animal, like hunt him.
Yeah, like it's horrible. And like this is part of the like found footage where it almost does look like snuff, and you can see why in 80s, and like Deodato sells it as a snuff film that gets people in seats. He snuck a clause into the contracts of the main actors saying that they can't act in a film for a year.
Yeah, or appear publicly for like a year.
So he can put on posters and ads that this is a real snuff film, that they went to the Amazon and were killed. And you might believe that because there's this...
Because 1980 fucking 4 or 3
Yeah.
or whenever because you heard
of
the
course.
legend about it from, you know.
Exactly. And when at that time, you're taught, your brain, you're trained to, when you see a camera on a person...
That's real.
on a suit with a microphone talking about something on the news, it's real. It happened, and that's why people thought it was real, because they did that. And it's like, fuck. I mean, it's like, I don't even... I mean, what else?
What can you say that hasn't been said? And then there's like,
I
yeah.
can say so much more, to be honest, but like... like I don't need to, but like the part, like let's talk about the real animal deaths for a while, right? Because that's first of all a big thing that probably the thing that turns people off of this movie and why it's so notorious is because real animals are killed for real on screen. And I mean, there's a website called Does the Dog Die where people can look up if fake dogs are killed in blockbuster movies.
Right.
And this movie is like, yeah, the animal dies for real on camera, but the animals are killed ethically. The Deodato is just like, what? Like, you didn't want to see what was happening? Like, this turtle, people eat this. It's a delicacy. This is expensive. This is how you get the meat from the turtle. This is what happens. But you don't want to see it? And that's, like, more of him, like, kind of pointing the lens, like, back on you in, like, the most extreme sense. Because we get that a little bit in, like, Benny's video, where we get the grainy VHS video of a real pig getting killed by the air gun.
Yeah, it's like
whatever.
stock
and
footage from like a slaughterhouse.
Right, and this is like that times 1,000.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'd say the difference here is that like they're like, at least especially with like, I don't know, it's got a name. They're not around here, but it's similar to like a muskrat. No, like
the very first one.
So that's
which is the worst one in my opinion.
Yes, but it's because that these people are like not traditional hunters or gatherers, tribesmen. They're like uneducated performers who are replicating something on screen.
Right.
Which is
who kills the muskrat?
Taking some
Miguel.
Life. Yeah.
Miguel. So we don't.
Miguel's a actor. Miguel's like
actor.
And
because Lucas.
That's hard to do, man. And like, I mean, it's just crazy. Whatever. But it's like, yeah, that's hard to do. Like, and you're not gonna end an animal's life ethically and quickly by stabbing it upwards through the fucking jaw. Like, it just was a sloppy, uneducated kill. And I'm not even necessarily mad at anybody. It's kind of crazy. Maybe Deodato for putting those people in those positions. But I'm just saying, it's like, if you had to do a similar thing, I don't think that you would do a better job intuitively.
No.
You know what I mean?
But I wouldn't do it.
Right, exactly. Until somebody takes you in the fucking jungle and screams at you and says, well, we're leaving tomorrow and we're not leaving without the shot, so are you coming or going?
That's what I'm saying. It's also the
like, you can't say you don't fucking know.
It's also exploitive of the actual name.
Yeah. This whole movie is fucking wild.
Taken to the Amazon and not known what they're doing. None of them knew about the animal deaths. And Luca, they interview him later. He grew up on a farm. He's the one that shoots the pig, which is a very famous scene too, because he literally just has a gun and shoots a pig in front of like a whole village, which is like, that is their like food. That's like their, well, you know, food, like I just said. And it's getting like shot by a gun, which they have no idea what that is, what's happening. They were informed about the film, but they don't know what a film is.
Right.
They don't know what cameras are. They don't know what these words that they're signed. I mean, they got the signatures that they needed legally,
right,
or whatever, but they didn't actually know what was happening, and that's apparent, and that's one of the reasons why this movie is really hard to watch and why it's such a downer, and why it makes sense as a Thanksgiving pick, because Thanksgiving is a fucking downer if you know anything about fucking anything. But back to like, animal death in Hollywood is also not a new thing. This was like, probably like, one of the first times that's like apparent. It's like, yeah, these animals are dying on screen.
Definitely not. No, dude, in huge blockbusters like fucking Apocalypse Now, like a fucking ox dies.
That's
like a big or a bison.
I feel like people
don't
know if that was
real as fuck.
Yeah, and it was. So hey, if you like Apocalypse Now and you didn't know that was real, guess what, fucker? You're watching a real animal die. And same with a lot of old
and like
Westerns,
pre-code
too.
shit. Oh, all those
You know about
horses are all
trip,
fucking...
the trip shit. So
Yeah.
they used to have like these trip wires that they would film scenes where horses would run,
Yeah,
and they'd have trip wires
because they're getting shot or whatever.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it would go off at the same time as the gun, and they'd kill the horse
Yeah, it's like
to get the shot.
like so many horses have been shot
Killed for
on
film.
set
Yeah.
for film. Like, I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying, like, if you like fucking good guy John Wayne movies, like fucking
This
30
horse is
horses getting
dying for
shot
that.
in those,
Yeah.
and nobody's eating them. Nobody's
And the
doing anything.
And the animals were eaten in Cannibal Holocaust,
None of it makes it. Well, I
which
mean,
doesn't
it
make
does
it
actually,
fine. Be like, oh, it's fine.
It does
But,
change
that's a
actually
thing.
quite a bit for me personally. I won't speak for everybody else, but
Yeah, it's like I still don't necessarily want to see it. It obviously doesn't stop me from watching a film. I just said I've seen this movie multiple times, and I mean, Benny's video was my pick, and I knew what was in it. I agree. There's always this ongoing fight about how animal violence is such like a cheap way to try to invoke being scared in people and blah blah blah. And I don't think that's why Deodato even had this. He like the animal deaths aren't the scary parts of the movie.
no.
Like they're really not. They're just like things that
They're
happen
atmospheric.
because they're in the Amazon. They're kind of like
they set tone.
honestly, the muskrat, the first one, is almost like just going on in the background. He's like caught it, and he's like, "We're having meat tonight," and then like you said, yeah, they like stab it, and this is the worst one in my opinion, just because it's like the animal that kind of emotes the most.
Well,
like,
he moved. He missed. Like, he just didn't do a good job.
yeah, it was not a. It's not a quick kill, and that animal moves like the animals that we know and love.
Yeah, it's a
would
mammal.
if
It's
they're-
not a
you know what I mean?
reptile. Like, that goes a long way for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it screams.
It's got hair and
like
feet
the-
and eyes and things.
Like the turtle or the tortoise is the longest and like the most.
I'd say it's
shown,
not like the longest
but it
death
doesn't
though. It's mostly like an
yell.
animal. It's animal processing. I'm not like
Yeah.
not to. I don't
Which
know.
is
Those
also
are all
fucking
different
it's
arguments.
so fucking brutal.
I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of
It's so
animals be processed. Like, I've seen a lot of guts come out of a lot of big fucking mammals and shit.
brutal.
You know what I mean?
I haven't. I haven't.
It's, I don't know. Like, yeah, cleaning deer or fucking birds or, you know, even just gutting fish and shit. But yeah,
It's shocking.
it's wild.
And that actor Perry like Perkinen or something did it, and because he was young and dumb and in a movie and doing whatever the angry director wanted him to, and no one from the film has seen or talked to him since, knows where he is, if he's okay. He gets death threats. He can't go out in public. Even the man who played Luca talks about getting death threats all the time. People outside of out of his house threatening him, threatening him, his family, his kids, because he killed a pig in a movie 50 years ago, which is, it's like half crazy and like half justified. There's just so many reasons why this movie's so fucking
yeah.
nuts. But I mean, the gore effects that are not real
Bang.
are so good. The woman on
The pike, yeah. So good.
which
yeah,
is
that's pretty good.
is iconic.
I'd say that though there's a few that aren't so good. Like there's the scene that might be in the, because I guess I didn't realize that there was like a reenactment, or I thought it was like bits and pieces and they showed all of it in its entirety, but like the first part is a reenactment of the footage that's found. Is that what you were saying?
No, them like retrieving the footage.
Okay.
Them
Never
going
mind.
to get
the footage.
Yeah. No, then we're good. We're good. I was like, confused. Like, oh, it was like, that's weird. Okay, so like the first time they show the actual footage, there's like a scene of someone getting like cut open. Like
The
she's
slow
like splayed
carving
out.
where she's
yeah,
splayed.
yeah, and she's just got like
That's
red
not the
paint.
best.
She's got like red paint on her.
Yeah.
And this isn't like a big dig, but like some of those stone tools look kind of like SNL cavemen sketch. Like
Yeah.
they're a little hokey.
For sure.
But I mean, yeah, the steak is fantastic. That's really, really good.
The steak is so good. Like it's like for me, that's the point where it's like, holy fuck. I mean, not now, but if I was watching this in 1980, that's the part where I'd be like, holy shit, am I gonna be in trouble for watching this? Like, this is a real dead woman.
Right. They don't like
and it's
women in
not.
this film.
It's not. No, they do not.
No, they don't. There's a lot of rape.
They do not. There's a lot of sexual violence against women. There's an extremely brutal scene of an unborn fetus being torn out of a woman and buried in mud. No, this movie is
It's not for
horrible. Like
everybody.
I'm like starting this. I'm like fucking A. Like I'm talking about how I like this movie, and I'm talking about it. And it's like people are gonna think I'm nuts. But if you're listening to
Still
this podcast, then I mean you know.
This is a fucking
I like
big boy. This is a heavy
fucked up
hitter.
shit. This ain't no fucking. I don't know. This ain't no fucking Human Centipede.
Yeah, dude, like all these movies that people try to talk up, like even, Crazy J horror shit where it's like Audition or whatever. It's
this
like, no,
ain't
dude, this is a
even-
different. These are big
This is
boy
real
league.
fucking life shit. The actress that gets raped by like the entire crew, and I say actress very loosely because she probably had no fucking idea what was going on. Deodato is asked in an interview where they're like, do you think she knew? And he's like, I don't know if she knew or not, but she agreed to do it and we did it. And she was 14 years old for that scene in the tall grass. You know what I'm talking about. That's a 14-year-old.
That's wild and at the same time not surprising at all to me. I also thought, like, because I'd never seen this before, I thought they were going to start raping their friend right after her, too.
Faye?
Yeah.
So when Faye pulls Alan Yates off and hits her, that's real. That's not in the script. She didn't know that any of that was going to happen, and she hits him in the face for real and chips one of his teeth. They talk about that in
Curse films.
in the Curse film episode about it. Like, she was pissed. I mean, for good reason. She didn't know, like, all the fucked up shit she had to do. She didn't know she was gonna have to do it. The scene where she's ultimately, they all die. We know this. The movie is about a professor going after 4 people that died, and she's one of them. So obviously she's dead. And the way that she is killed is surprisingly extremely brutal and graphic. She's raped and killed, and in the script, apparently a lot of it was off camera. She didn't have to do nudity. She had something she was supposed to like be able to back out or like have a word if it went too far, and Deodato ignored all that. And that's why her reactions are visceral and real, because they are visceral and real. And it's like an extreme version of like Marilyn Burns. Like you think you kind of go back to her at the final dinner table, of her screaming and bleeding and crying. She's actually terrified and hurt and
tired,
bleeding and tired and sick and hot.
It's hot out.
And that's like the same thing here.
Yeah,
and
Shelley
like
Duvall
the same
and
thing with Blair
The Shining
Witch.
or Blair Witch or like a lot of the Jodorowsky movies. Like there's a lot of accusations of rather unethical means to get those performances, and it's not excusable, but it wasn't questioned as much, I guess, is what I'm saying. and especially for these kids, because they were like 18, 19, and they're in Colombia. They're
high as fuck on cocaine
Yeah, dude.
all the time, which is like another thing. Like they're in a jungle.
They're not getting
crew
paid much, but they're getting
found
drugs.
Cocaine. They're high as fuck all the time. Yeah, they're young, dumb, and trying to make it in Hollywood. So they're kind of like willing to do whatever. And there's like this thing surrounding this movie that is like, oh, there's this court case, like he was arrested for them like actually being murdered. He had to prove in case that no one was murdered, and that's all bullshit. There was a court case, and it was he was jailed for 4 months for offense to public morality, and he lied. Deodato lied and like told everybody and news reporters that the court case was about the dead missing teens and like everything else, the hype of his movie, which also like wasn't really a new thing, because like kind of like The Exorcist and like The Omen, and I'm not thinking about years at the time right now, but like that's a thing that happens, that they frame it as real. And even Blair Witch 20 years later did that. Like the ads for that movie were wanted posters of the people that went into the woods, and the director of the Blair Witch says, I am so lucky that I made the Blair Witch Project before seeing Cannibal Holocaust, because if I saw Cannibal Holocaust first, I would not have made Blair Witch, because it had been done
movie.
already. And there are so many similarities, like when they get lost and screaming at each other, and it's really kind of is just like an older, different setting, like way more graphic version of it. It's the same movie.
Tells the same story essentially.
Yeah.
Like without all the specifics of the plot, like the major devices are the same.
Even the beginning with like the fake interviews and the mockumentary style is like, that's exactly how Blair Witch starts. But yeah, this movie is for very little. Excuse me. This movie is for not a lot of people. But that being said, like this is also like a Criterion.
This is an important movie.
Film, like
yeah.
Like I almost feel like I need to say this is like horror requisite. Like you kind of fucking need.
There's a certain type of person.
This movie.
If you like horror movies and you're watching It and Smile and The Conjuring, and maybe you go back and even watch like The Shining or some classics.
Right. Don't.
No,
watch
we're
this.
not. That's not what we're talking about. It's not
you.
requisite for every horror fan.
Not
but
talking to you.
if you're one of those people who still listens to 13th and Elm after 50 plus episodes, and you think that there's value in hearing dumb people talk about stupid movies,
Or if
check this
you're
one out.
watching Giallo and you're interested in
if you're
and,
checking out like
like,
all of the
films that
gore
are
movies, Ray
important.
Harryhausen, the Universal Monsters, you're doing your like J horror homework and everything. If you're a fan of Joe Bob Briggs, watch this movie.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean? Like if you're doing the deep cuts and like you can watch bad movies. Because Rob, are you a fan of Joe Bob Briggs?
No.
You a fan of Cannibal Holocaust?
No.
There you go.
But even if someone out there is listening that is on the fence, look it up.
Do some research.
If you made it this far, there's no more spoilers that you're going to get from looking it up. Look it up and understand what is in it and what is shown and what you're going to see if you decide to watch this movie. It's 90 minutes, but it's a heavy 90.
There's also
Exactly.
alternative cuts out there. You can see the PETA cuts, which will show you the same film with no animal violence.
Yes.
There's, obviously you can just watch documentaries about this movie and listen to the soundtrack, which is what Rob probably wishes he would have kept doing rather than spend 90 minutes with this, but at least it wasn't 2.5.
This movie's on Shudder. If you've got Shudder, watch the Curse film episode on it, And after that segment, if that segment makes you interested in watching the movie,
Give it a shot.
then watch it.
If it makes you go, oh, fuck no,
If
that's
you're
just
like,
the tip of
what
the
the
iceberg. You have
fuck?
no idea.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With that being said, do you wanna cover anything else?
I'd like to hear Rob's voice a little bit, but
I would like to too. He's got the sexiest voice here.
chocolatey cascading.
I don't know. You guys kind of said it all. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, fuck this movie. I didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I
watching
agree.
this.
Honestly,
Let me talk. Shut up.
yeah.
I didn't enjoy watching this movie. I really didn't enjoy watching this movie. It's a well-made film. Soundtrack's fantastic. I didn't like watching this movie. I don't know if watching it in a different cut is better or worse or anything really. But yeah, like you guys said, it's very political. Like, it's not subtle about it. Like, literally the last line in the film is like, I wonder who the real cannibals are. It's like dialogue. A lot of, again, like, you know, you're seeing animals being butchered, and I do mean butchered, with edged weapons poorly, and being cooked and eaten, and you're going and seeing cannibals like, oh, well, cannibalism's fucked up, but you know, you're eating animals and all that kind of stuff. But do the ends justify the means? No. I won't watch this movie again. I don't think, like a lot of movies we watch, the only people I'm going to recommend it to are you two, and you've seen it. Yeah. Definitely a big boy film. Can't deny its place in history and cinematography and horror in its own way. And it's the one that lives up to what it's supposed to be, I guess. Like again, I'm just like saying all the shit you guys already said, but
Right.
you know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not a very good film either, and pretty boring. And it's just like cool. You show a bunch of like chicken bones on the floor and a woman running around screaming. That's cool.
But you didn't feel impacted the same, or you like
I don't know,
what's
man.
different? Like, I
Like,
guess
this film is just, it just, again, like, I also, this is weird. The more you guys talked about it and the more I learned about the director, the less I like this movie, because he's a piece of shit.
for sure.
Like,
Oh, he's a piece of shit. He's not even like.
like getting any more context on this movie makes it more icky to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I haven't seen his other stuff, but from what I've seen and heard, it's almost like he just got fucking lucky, because he doesn't seem like a smart, like, art house like guy. He kind of just seems
He's
like a
made the
dumb
same movie,
piece of
like, literally
shit
6
that got
times.
Sure.
lucky.
If you told me that the actress who is tied up to the pole, and you know, in that whole like
Yeah.
adultery, if you told me that she had like internal bruising and bleeding and had to be flown to an emergency hospital, I'd believe you. Like, I did not like this movie, so that's where I stand.
Yeah. Fair enough. Do you want to rate it?
No, but I will. I don't know. 40 for the soundtrack.
40 for the soundtrack.
40 for the soundtrack. What about you?
Well, this
You're gonna give it like a 92 or some stupid shit, both of you.
is hard because
I want to go last. Do you want to say ours at the same time?
no. This is a film that's it's a film. And it all depends on how you want to grade it, or how you want to look at it, or what it means to you. This is a piece of art that says a lot to me. And we're giving it 87.
Fuck. This movie
For the soundtrack.
is horrible in so many ways. And just its conception, how it was made, and so many decisions and everything. So what I'm about to say next might not make a lot of sense, but I give this movie a 90 for the soundtrack. And this movie is, I've seen them all. And if you know, you know. You look up those lists of all the fucked up movies.
Seen them all.
I see if it's updated. I've seen them all. I've seen more. I'm not, this wouldn't even be a brag. What a bullshit, weird brag this would try to be. I've gone to weird edges of the fucking internet to edge. No. I've gone to edges of the internet to watch the most fucked up movies, and I've seen the most fucked up movies. And
Mary and Dora, if you're listening, fuck you.
I'm not talking about Dora. I'm not talking about Dora in this sense.
I know, but just still.
Yeah, but still, fuck you, Dora. This movie is incredibly hard to watch. I've seen it 3 or 4 times. I think it's fair to say I've cried every time. I cried this time watching it just alone in my room, and some of that might be knowing the background of it. If I went into it really, really, really blind and dumb, where I didn't know what was real and what was fake, and I thought it was all just really good and fake, I wouldn't. But I know, and it's extremely upsetting. And that being said, I give it a fucking 90, and I'm going to watch it again because I'm a horrible person, and I like movies that make me feel so horrible that I cry, and I don't know why. And I'll talk to my therapist about it. And this is 90. And we're on Mars. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
It's so quiet up here. I hate how quiet it is. I'm talking and I'm like, fuck, there's not, because usually there's like,
Yeah.
we're like getting food or like something, but
Standing
we're just
in
on
line.
fucking fuck off. Elon Musk just drove by. Did you see? Fuck off.
No, that's
Elon.
Bezos. That's Bezos.
Fuck off,
Jeff.
Bezos.
That's Jeff. Yeah.
Was that Jeff?
That's Jeff.
Wait, when was Elon here?
I don't think Elon's taking care of that dumpster fire down on Earth right now.
Did we start that to get him out of here?
No.
I did.
Oh, the
he
dumpster
paid
fire that is Earth?
No, he paid $1 billion for the dumpster fire.
Oh,
That one.
that's fucking topical.
That shit's funny. Yeah.
Holy fuck. Elon Musk, if you're listening, I hope you fucking get killed in an accident.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, until we get back to Earth.
We're on
Yeah.
Mars.
Yeah. Don't
There's
die till we get back
statutes
to
of
Earth.
limitations of distance.
I don't want to get stranded here.
Holy fuck.
We
Did
haven't
we lock
gotten
the
anybody
keys in the
pregnant.
ship?
Yeah. No. We should probably get back to trying.
We gotta.
Guys, thanks for listening. We gotta get back to trying to get one of us fucking pregnant.
Which one of us is gonna be picking a movie next week?
I think it is Rob.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
It's me.
Oh yeah, it's gonna have me a prize. It's gonna be.
It's gonna be something that Rob picks.
Okay, you guys good? They're getting ready for later.
No, I mean, oh, yeah, we're in. We're
yeah,
in March.
you know these, this, that, the other. this film.
I feel like he's picking the movie right now.
Like, what if you'd shut up? This film is a good little palate cleanser after Cannibal Holocaust. It's a good one. I think it's actually a PG-13.
Oh, it's a PG-13 vampire movie. We love it already.
It actually doesn't have any vampires in it.
No.
Shut the fuck up.
It's actually a creature feature.
Yeah.
It's based on a true story.
Fuck you guys. We're taking a sabbatical because I don't want to pick a movie.
No.
It's Tremors.
Oh,
Yeah! Fuck yeah!
fuck yes.
Yes!
Are we going, and where are we going again to watch this?
We're going to. Australia.
You don't
Going
have
to
the
Australia.
tickets. You say that sounded a lot like you haven't
Do
bought
we need
the
to get the
tickets yet.
tickets still?
Well, I didn't really know
We're on Mars.
when
Can we
were
take
going
the
to get.
ship there? Can we just land there?
I don't think Australia's a space program. I wasn't sure when we were
We've
going to
got
get
Perth.
back, and I didn't want to buy tickets. And
That's true.
Are we going to Perth?
Changed.
We're going to Perth?
Yeah, we're going to
I
Perth.
like Western Australia. I've never been. I like the idea of Western Australia. I've never.
You like
been.
the idea of it?
Yeah, I've never been.
Yeah, we're going to Perth.
Sounds like something cool to be into. Let's go
It's
to Perth.
very good. Or yeah, can we go to Perth?
We haven't gotten our tickets yet because we're on Mars. But do we get bars up here? I don't have shit.
I got
I've got
bars.
some Xanax, yeah.
Check it out. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, shut the door because
We
I'm
gotta-
going to Mars.
We gotta
Yeah.
go. We're about to take a bunch of Xanax and try to get pregnant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, pull up with us, watch two films.